Hey everybody, J-Mac here. First of all, want to wish everyone a happy new year. I hope everyone enjoyed their holiday. This is the second video in the series Building Optionality, where I share all the steps for building a new product from the ground up. And this one's literally from the ground up because I'm also building the audience. But I think that's important. It's important to emphasize that these, are the initial steps you have to take when you're building a product. You have to focus on the audience. So, admittedly, I didn't do that much since the last video because of the holidays. I probably spent about 10 hours in total. I'd say 2 to 3 hours in creating the blog here from using Jigsaw, the static site generator, which we talked about in the first video. Probably 6 hours, a majority of the time, was spent crafting content. And then, about an hour just kind of setting everything up on the server, right? Publishing this thing to the internet. There was a little bit of time, a fractional amount of time there, just, crafting some tweets, setting things up here and there, and just kind of coming up with future blog post ideas. But again, a super small amount of time is really all that it took. Just 10 hours, it's really nothing in the grand scheme of things. But again, just to really drive home that point, I didn't go off and write any code. I didn't architect anything. I haven't even really started building the product yet. All this is around building the audience, which is just so important. It's something that really, especially for this product and especially for me, since it's kind of a new audience, a different audience than I'm used to, is really, really, really that much more important. So another thing to point out too is that, this isn't a lot of time generally speaking. It's something right now with MVP means, not necessarily minimum viable product, but minimum effort, right? The minimal amount of effort. Because the truth is, and ironically, relating to investing here, time is money, right? So the time I'm spending on this product, it needs to be considered money. And that money spent or that time spent is something I want to get ultimately a return on, right? I want to get a return on my time. I want to get a return on my investment. And so because of that, again, I want to try to mitigate my risk, and I want to make sure that I'm doing something that's ultimately going to be successful, that's ultimately going to give me that return on time, give me that return on investment. So that's the way this all needs to be treated. So again, parallels nicely with investing in general, but it serves well for building products. And although, like I said in the first video, this is something I'll ultimately probably build to scratch kind of my own itch for portfolio tracking, it's something that, again, I want to stay disciplined. I want to, make these weekly videos. I want to make these weekly posts. I want to continue to try to do everything I can to build that audience so I have the most success down the road. It is kind of ironic, though, again, just kind of on a similar point. I definitely could have used this tool in December. The December downturn really kind of created a bit of panic in the market, I think, for some people. So having that portfolio tracker definitely would have helped me probably better manage a few positions that ended up being losing trades. But again, there's an opportunity here, and hopefully, I'll get the opportunity to build that. So let's talk a little bit about the things that I did do in those 10 hours. So again, the first bit of it was setting up kind of the blog here. And I said last time that I was going to use Jigsaw. It's kind of funny because they actually did have a starter template. I went back and watched the initial video because I totally did not remember this starter template. I was asking people if they knew of one. I was kind of intimidated to build one because, again, I didn't want to spend a lot of my own time. I was really looking for like a theme or a template to use. And here it is right here. I went back and watched the first video, and this link was not here in that first video. So they must have updated this or moved it around or something. But boom, right here, they have a starter template out of the box. It even used Tailwind, which is something that, I've been kind of also wanting to learn a little bit more about. But I'm familiar enough with it to kind of get things going. I think it's just a really great, quick way to kind of style a site. So all this worked out really well. So I ended up running basically this command, got a starter template, and just tweaked it slightly. So really those tweaks, again, not a whole lot of time, less than 2 hours. This tweak here was really just a super simple text-based, branding, if you will, for optionality. I just jumped out the Google fonts. I threw in optionality. I applied it to all the fonts. I took out handwriting and monospace because I knew I didn't want those. If you do know you want handwriting, that would be, even simpler, even less fonts to review. But I basically just kind of broke these down and scrolled around and just kind of found one that kind of felt, you know, just a little different than the one they had, to give me, something to start with. Also created just the beginnings of a tagline: options trading for the rest of us. This will take more shape, obviously, as will the branding. I want to do a logo, colors, etc. But again, minimal effort right now. So that was it to set up this site. Really just tweak that. There was one thing I'll admit I did spend a little extra time on. Let me bump the screen size up just a little bit to make sure that's coming across well. But I just kind of tweaked this by adding a little bit of kind of human readability here. And this hopefully overall is going to help improve the kind of readership, I think, or at least that's how I justified it. So a lot of investment posts have the tendency to be like really, really long, and I think as such can be intimidating to readers. So this read time was something I kind of coded up simply to just make sure that first of all, I'm kind of writing things that have a similar cadence, a similar length, but also, just to help maybe these posts be a little bit more welcoming. And then I also just had kind of a more human readable format. So instead of like published on January 4th, it was like published 6 hours ago. So this is a post I just kind of pushed out this morning, one of those first posts. So here it is. The second post will go out, early next week. So again, hitting that weekly thing. So these not only keep me honest and give me a measurement, but also give readers a measurement of the frequency and how long of a time commitment they will have to invest, in reading these posts. The code behind that, just to kind of go back to the whole programmer land, is basically just what Jigsaw calls a helper method. This is in the config file. But here's one for read time and publish time. Read time was just a very simple formula I kind of aggregated from a couple blog posts I read on the subject. Adults basically read 200 words a minute, so took the word count divided by 200, rounded that, and just turned it into a whole number to make it nice and easy. I don't necessarily want to say this is going to take you 4 minutes and 23 seconds to read, so this is just that nice simple 5-minute read time. Same with publish time. Just wanted to use something to make it human readable. Carbon, which is a really nice time library or date library in PHP, just has this great function diff for humans, aptly named, of course. Arguably, from an MVP perspective, I didn't have to write these other 3 lines of code because I don't have any posts that are older than 30 days. But my thought, process was already there, so I just went ahead and drafted those up too. So that was really it. Again, just 2 to 3 hours tops on this. 6 hours was spent on the posts. This is where a far majority of time goes. I think a lot of people underestimate how long it takes to draft and write up and proofread and in this case fact check, add images, make sure it has all the proper SEO, cross-post it. I mean, so much time goes into writing a post. I think people greatly underestimated this, and honestly, it's probably why when you build a product, you don't do it. You don't write all this content, but I'm really hoping this is going to pay off. This is going to prove the idea. So again, drafting this post also, kind of gave me an idea of how I want them to take shape, right? What I want the format to be. So I just kind of have this introduction. I kind of have 2 examples. I've got some charts. This is kind of the chart style that I want to use. So I've got that pinned for the future. That should hopefully go a little faster. Again, another chart. And then close it up with kind of a TLDR sense where I kind of hint towards, maybe this future product, these lessons that are learned and kind of how they could have been solved, all ultimately kind of aiming at this idea of, automation and tracking and portfolio management. So again, it's all general stuff that's great for any reader, but hopefully it helps me kind of funnel down those readers that are interested in maybe this same thing or running into these same issues, and then kind of finally a call to action to basically, for now, follow me on Twitter. So that helps. I draft 2 of these at a time. That's something else that allows me to kind of get a week ahead because these posts do take a pretty long time to kind of set up and draft and write and publish. I just want to kind of get a week ahead. So I've been drafting 2 at a time. And again, the goal is to basically write 1 of these a week, 4 of them, and then kind of assess how they measure up to the goals that we set out in the first video. So the last thing was really just publishing this to the internet, right? Pushing it out there. And again, as developers, I think a lot of the times we might get caught up in this, having it go to Git and doing some kind of Git pull or doing some kind of building or continuous integration and continuous deployment tools. And I gotta say, do not ever underestimate the power of an rsync command. This is super simple. Rsync's been around since the beginnings of Unix. It's battle proven, stands the test of times. I actually use this on a lot of things. This is a 4-line shell script that basically just syncs the files up from the build folder to the Shift web server. Kind of to that point, I didn't even set up my own, cloud-based instance of all this. I really just kind of piggybacked one I already had for another product. I have the space there. The reality is, while optimistically I hope to get a lot of traffic, I'm not getting a lot of traffic right now, so it's really no big deal to just piggyback that as well. So again, single line R script, basically pull up or basically copy up any of the changed files to the web server. That's pretty much it. So let's just actually close with kind of seeing this in action. So I just run this. Basically builds, Jigsaw, runs the Jigsaw command to build it. Basically runs npm to kind of clean up all the assets, purge CSS, and then it shoots those all out to the server. In this case, it only uploads anything that had changed. So it synchronizes rsync, remote synchronization. And so in this case, just the timestamps really just changed for the Atom feed and the sitemap. So that's all we see that got uploaded. So that's really it. That's everything I think for this week. The goals I think for next time again is to continue posting these, cross-posting these, and trying to bump up those Twitter numbers as measurement, trying to see an increase in traffic in Google Analytics. All the goals that we outlined before. I did pick up just a few followers, maybe about 10 since the first video, so that's pretty good for the holiday and not really doing much other than posting some tweets. But again, I want to see these numbers move up, gain some more momentum, and then next time in the next video, I'll really go back and kind of focus on this landing page and maybe even start a newsletter so I can, again, continue to funnel that audience and build an audience that is going to use and support this product. So hope you all enjoyed, and see you next time.